It's the dead of winter. Let's warm things up. Today we're going to talk about a filmmaker from Florida, and I'd like to hear about your favorite, down in the comments, I'd like to hear about your favorite tropical or subtropical horror movies. Hello, I'm Adam Caesar. This is Project Black T-shirt, the channel where we talk about horror movies and horror books. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to go see more videos like it. And I am also the author of Clown in a Cornfield, a teen slasher out now in hardcover, ebook, and audiobook from Harper Teen. If you like this, and if you've told all your friends about it, and if you've reviewed it, I have like 10 other novels, novellas, short story collections for you to go check out and read after you're done with this one. Today, I am very, very excited about what we're going to talk about on the channel, because we're not talking about one movie, we're not talking about two movies, we're talking about, how many movies are we even talking about? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're talking about 8 movies, so this video will probably be, 12 hours long. Bear with me, because I'm very excited about today's topic, and I've spent the last 2 weeks kind of digesting this box set, and I really want to talk about it all. This is He Came from the Swamp, the William Grefe collection. This is a collection of, not a complete collection, and we'll talk about that, but this is a collection of 7 films from the Florida-based director William Grefe, from the 60s and 70s, and then the 8th movie is They Came from the Swamp, the documentary, the 2-hour plus documentary about Grefe's life and career by director Daniel Griffith. And this is, if there was ever a set tailor-made for me, I've talked about Arrow's other kind of filmmaker-specific box sets. I've talked about the George Romero one they did. I've talked about the Jose Larraz set that they did. There's probably other ones I've talked about that I can't even remember because I've been doing this too long. But this is the one that felt, okay, this is specifically made for Adam to a certain extent. And I haven't seen as many people kind of talking about this set. And I think that's because while we are going to talk about all 8 films, and while I'm definitely going to end up giving this set the Caesar seal of approval here, and I am going to kind of hard sell you on this and why this is great and why I enjoy it so much. As I was watching these movies, especially as I was entering like the 4th and 5th picture, I did kind of key into and realize, oh, this very much isn't for everyone. Oh, this very much isn't going to be the type of thing that even people that enjoy low budget films and enjoy kind of cult films and enjoy B movies, if you're into the Corman stuff, if you're into the Crown International stuff, if you're into AIP, if you're into even Ed Wood, there's certain genre elements that are kind of missing in some of Grefe's films, and certain kind of exploitable elements that are missing in Grefe's films that mean they may not be like an instant buy for even the people who are into this kind of stuff. But it's my channel, I can do what I want. I'm going to talk about William Grefe for 30 minutes or whatever. This set is really, really amazing. Just the way it's set up and the way it's been produced. I'm gonna have one critical thing to say about it, but that's not really Arrow's fault, and we're not gonna dwell on it, and I will save my criticisms for the end. But it comes with 1, 2, 3, 4. The 8 movies are spread across 4 discs. Each of the cases has the movie's name on the spine. They do have reversible artwork for each of the movies. It has liner notes that, this is above and beyond the normal liner notes booklet that Arrow includes in these things, because this is hardcover. It's really a beautifully produced book. There's a little introduction by Grefe himself here, because he is still with us. He is all over the special features here. And there's a long interview from 1999 that was originally in Fangoria that's kind of been expanded here. It's kind of a career retrospective interview. Poster, and then the movies themselves. But let's start at the beginning. This first disc, I would say the most on-brand or most horror fan appealing of the movies in this set. Some of these movies are not horror at all, or like horror adjacent. But the first 2 films in the set are the reason I wanted this set so bad. A lot of these movies were originally released as part of Something Weird Video, and as part of Something Weird Video's image line of double features. And Sting of Death and Death Curse of Tartu is one of my favorite discs in that whole collection. They're 2 of the movies that really kind of got me interested in regional horror, got me interested in 60s and 70s regional filmmaking. And it's because they exude such a great Florida atmosphere to them. So Sting of Death is the first movie on the set. It is not the first movie Grefe made, but it is the first horror movie he made. As the name might sound, it is a giant killer jellyfish movie, but there is a twist to it. It's not just a humanoid jellyfish. There's reasoning behind why it looks like a guy in flippers and stuff like that. It's not just a crappy monster costume. Even though it is the first film in the set, Sting of Death is kind of the most emblematic of Grefe's entire oeuvre, at least what's represented in this set. It has go-go dancing. It has real Florida locations that are just like unreplaceable with sets. It has the Everglades. It has water-based underwater photography. It has really bright colors. Of the movies in this set, Sting of Death is I think I went through the book. I just read this information, but I'm pretty sure Sting of Death is the only movie to be restored from its negative as part of this set. Even though it's the oldest movie in the set, it does end up looking the best out of all these movies because of that. It has the brightest colors. It looks the best. It is just a really rich and vibrant looking transfer. And as the set goes on, you're going to get even though the movies become more and more recent, they almost get worse and worse looking. And I think that's just because of the materials that Arrow was able to salvage to present these movies to us. Not really a complaint, just because it's the realities of the situation, but something to be aware of if you're going to buy this set. You're buying a Blu-ray set. This is not going to be check disc quality. You're not going to throw this in and be like, okay, tonight we're going to look at James Cameron's Terminator 2 Judgment Day and Death Curse of Tartu. You're not going to do that with this set. But it's nice to have these movies the best they could possibly look. Sting of Death just really has everything I enjoy in a movie like this. The 60s, this kind of swinging 60s style. The fact that it feels a little bit, it's a movie where there's a lot of young people and it's about young people. And even though Grefe himself was not like old when he made it, it still feels a little bit square. It still feels a little odd. But there's just a really great energy to it. The dialogue and the script and the pacing of these movies is so much a cut above your typical very low budget movies of the time. There's not a lot of padding in these films, and it's so refreshing in that way. They feel energetic, and they don't feel cynical. They don't feel like absolute cash-ins, even though some of them kind of are. So that's Sting of Death. It's a movie I really love. It's a movie I've loved for a long time. It's kind of the whole reason I wanted to get the set. It's because I wanted to explore more of Grefe's work. Now I'm going to flip around the art here so you can see that these are kind of full-blooded releases for both movies, even though you can kind of only face out one at a time. Death Curse of Tartu is not as good as Sting of Death, and there's a really concrete reason for that in the director's introduction. Each one of these has a recently shot introduction by Grefe. He's a very funny and kind of sharp guy, and it's almost like he's shooting his own YouTube videos when he records these introductions for these movies. But I would highly suggest it gives you the option of playing them with and without. They don't have spoilers in them or anything. I would watch the introductions before the movies, give them some context. Death Curse of Tartu was made very, very quickly and very, very inexpensively because he had found a distributor for Sting of Death. And we're like, okay, we're going to put this out in drive-ins, but drive-ins are double feature based. We need another feature to go with Sting of Death to bring it up to that double feature runtime. So he very quickly, very inexpensively shot Death Curse of Tartu, which is a mummy movie, a Native American chieftain who has been mummified, who curses a certain spot of land, causing trouble, and he doesn't do it directly. It's not like a Boris Karloff mummy movie where you have a mummy shuffling around. You do get shots of that, but what he does is he possesses animals, or he becomes animals. So what it really is the mummy movie and a When Animals Attack movie kind of peanut buttered and jelly together, and it's of the movies in this set. it is the one that does feel the most padded, that does feel the most cynical, that does feel the most, we got to get this in the can quickly. But there are some stellar, amazing when animals attack sequences peppered throughout this movie, and it has a fairly substantial body count, and the kills, and the kills are all kind of Florida based, except for one that's very much not, but they make a point of saying that. But there's alligator attacks and snake attacks and things like that. Tartu becomes or possesses different animals. Really, really fun. Really, really a good companion piece to Sting of Death, but overall not my favorite movie in the set. The next movie we're going to talk about is The Hooked Generation, which had its own image, Something Weird video disc. I'd never gotten it. I'd never kind of checked it out. I always thought it was like a drug scare film. I never knew like what its deal was, just because of the title. Kind of thought it would be like one of the Corman drug movies, like The Trip, or something like that. And it's not really. It's what it is a biker movie where no one has bikes. They have boats. It is these three really morally repellent drug dealers who, at the very beginning of the film, we see are buying drugs from Cuba. They're meeting up with Cuban soldiers. The drug deal goes bad, and they kind of begin this kind of killing and crime spree that just goes throughout the entire movie. So it's these three real villain characters that feel like they're kind of straight out of a biker movie, but there's no motorcycles in it. And one of them is played by the guy with the crazy glasses from Born Losers, which people know is the first Billy Jack movie, the movie that kind of the proto Billy Jack, the movie that introduced Billy Jack, that Tom Laughlin kind of remade as Billy Jack to kind of center the Billy Jack character. But the thing about Born Losers is that it has a hero in it. The Hook Generation feels like a Born Losers ripoff, and I think to a certain extent it was. But it's like, let's not even deal with a hero. Let's not even focus on a hero. Let's just focus on the bad guys. So in a way, it's kind of like Satan's Sadist, the Al Adamson movie, and it's like a proto Devil's Rejects in a way, because we're just following the bad guy characters. But it has almost like this episodic quality where they're going to different locations, they're going to different places and causing trouble, and they kidnap a young couple. It's the movie in the set that most surprised me. I really, really, really enjoyed The Hook Generation. It is kind of mean and nihilistic, but at the same time has that Florida sheen to it. That it looks really colorful and hippy-dippy, but completely doesn't embody those hippy-dippy ideals in a positive way. It seems like it was made by it's kind of regressive. All these people on drugs and all these people selling drugs are just absolute lawless madmen. It is really, 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 really good. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy the core cast of the three main characters, one of which, John David Chandler, will become a kind of Grefe regular. He shows up in a lot of these movies later on. I like that. I like seeing a filmmaker build kind of a stable of actors. He becomes the regular. He's playing this character a lot up until the last movie, up until Whiskey Mountain. He plays a similar character. But Hook Generation was great and surprising and really, really awesome. Paired with The Hook Generation on the same disc is another kind of drug trippy William Grefe film. This is an outlier in the set because this was not filmed in Florida. This is The Psychedelic Priest. It plays here under the title card Electric Shades of Grey. This was a movie that was kind of considered lost, or was not really released, or was just soft released. I don't really know. But The Psychedelic Priest, it was made between a deal between Grefe and an LA-based producer. The producer was like, okay, I'll pay your fee. Come on out here. Come make this movie for me. And when Grefe got to Los Angeles, the producer was like, yeah, we want to make the movie, but we don't have any script. We don't have a script. So he made this movie completely unscripted, improvisational dialogue, kind of like before they shot, let's figure out what the dialogue is kind of thing with these actors. The loose story is a young Catholic priest. At the very beginning of the movie, we see him kind of talk to some kids who are smoking grass, and these kids that are falling into bad habits, and he gives them this whole speech, and they give him as an olive branch, they give him a little Dixie cup of Coca-Cola. He drinks it. He's been dosed with acid, and it sends him on this trip through California, this kind of road trip through California where he's discovering himself and getting hooked on harder drugs and things like that, and making friends and falling in love, and falling out of love and having tragedy. It is not a horror movie in any way, shape, or form. There are barely any horror or even drive-in elements to it. But when I'd watched the director introduction and I heard him say like, "Oh, we didn't have a script for this," it was one of those ones where I'm like, "Well, am I going to even talk about this on the channel? Should I just skip it for now? Should I watch it later?" I don't know that sounds great to me. Another movie where I was completely charmed. The location photography, the outsider's view of both Los Angeles and the surrounding areas in Southern and Northern California are really kind of cool and beautiful, and it's a really good road movie. It's got a ton of Woodstock psychedelic rock, smooth, easy listening songs in here. Like, I really liked the soundtrack. I really liked the main actors. I really enjoyed this movie. It's not what I had expected when I picked up this set. When you look at the cover and you see alligators and guns and sharks and all this stuff and all this Florida iconography and all this dangerous Florida stuff, you look at a movie like this, which is in a way very sensitive and in a way very progressive. If you compare it immediately to the Hook generation, it seems like it was made by two different people. But I think that's very emblematic of Grefe as an artist and Grefe as a businessman, is the idea that he'll do anything. He'll make anything, but they still feel part of a whole. They still feel like they fit in his filmography. That's what this set really comes down to, and what I really took away from it is that idea. If you take someone's multi-decade career, 20-something films, if you include the short films, and he did second unit on a lot of different stuff, and he even did some big movies, and we'll talk about that a little later when we talk about Mako. But like, you look at someone's whole career in the arts, whole career as a filmmaker, and you just lay it all out and you talk about it in an intelligent way. You start seeing these little connections, but you also start noticing these little idiosyncrasies and these little contradictions that don't seem like, this doesn't seem like it fits with this, but it makes total sense when you look at the whole. That's what the psychedelic priest is. May not be Florida based, but it's still very, very enjoyable. The Naked Zoo is a melodrama starring, or kind of starring, she's not in it. She kind of disappears for a little while because you get the idea that she was only around to shoot for a few days. Starring Rita Hayworth as an aging woman who kind of gets close with a gigolo. She has this relationship with him while her husband's like in the house and he's in a wheelchair, and we know that something's going to go wrong. The gigolo is this writer. He's like a paperback writer who seems like a really difficult person and a real, as the movie goes on, a real dirtbag. This is one of the darkest movies in the set. It probably is the darkest movie in the set. It does kind of fit in that like Sunset Boulevard, whatever happened to Baby Jane, Hollywood horror house, hagsploitation kind of genre, like an older woman with a younger man who's exploiting her. It's really a bummer. It's also maybe my least favorite film in the set. Grefe talked about in his introduction to the film that this was kind of taken away from him by the producers, and they had spliced in a lot more partying, even though there's plenty of partying in the movie, and a bunch of nudity and sex that he didn't shoot and he didn't want in the movie. The movie's relatively tame, but they do include that unofficial cut. But it's to the point that you hear him talking in the introduction where Arrow must have said, okay, we're going to include the Naked Zoo in the set, and he got upset. He didn't want to talk about the version of the movie that wasn't his version. So they kind of reconstructed a director's cut version, and that's the one here. You can choose to watch either version, but I watched the Grefe approved version. But it's a real bummer, and not in the way that I could say that I 100% enjoyed. But still interesting to see nonetheless. It shows you a different part of Florida where Death Curse of Tartu and Sting of Death are all like the Everglades and stuff like that. This is Miami itself, where Grefe was born, and Coconut Grove, and you see kind of that area, and there's filming in the studios in Florida that Grefe used a lot. So it just gives you another piece of that regional flavor kind of to fill in the set. Next, we're going to talk about Mako, Jaws of Death, also just known as Jaws of Death, which is the title card that it plays under here. This was my biggest surprise of the set. This was probably my favorite movie in the set. This is basically kind of mixed with a superhero story in a way. This is basically Willard with sharks, where Willard had his rats that he loved, that he communicated with, that he kind of sent after the people who'd wronged him. The character here in Mako, Sonny, he loves his sharks. Even though the movie's called Mako, they are tiger sharks for a good bit of it. There's incredible underwater photography here. And the reason it's kind of so good and Grefe seems so adept at it is he was hired by the producers, the Broccolis. He was hired by the Bond people to shoot the shark sequences, the underwater shark sequences in Live and Let Die, the James Bond movie. So he kind of took that experience, internalized that experience, and built a whole movie around it, which is Mako, Jaws of Death. This is a wild movie because you find out that he's not only friends with these sharks, he not only feeds the sharks and protects the sharks, but he is psychically linked to the sharks in some way, or supernaturally linked to the sharks in some way, because he went on this whole adventure, and they show this whole. He's explaining his backstory to the girl in the movie, and they show this whole sequence where he's escaping an army and is saved by these sharks, is bonded with these sharks forever. But it is an everything but the kitchen sink exploitation movie. It really has everything. You're all over the place. We get the idea that Sonny is pretty gullible, even though he's our hero and he just makes a lot of mistakes. He loans his pregnant female shark to an oceanographic institute, the kind of really shady guy that wants to observe live shark birth, which doesn't end well. And then he loans his other best friend shark to a guy that owns a bar in Florida that it's like a mermaid bar, an aquamaid bar, and the main thing is you have instead of a go-go dancer, you have this tank where this woman is swimming, scantily clad. To spice up the act, they want to add one of his sharks. I know this plot description sounds all over the place, but you'll watch the movie and you'll be like, wow, this movie is kind of all over the place, even though everything makes sense. There's a certain kind of logic to everything that happens in it, and it does follow that kind of blueprint of Willard, which is very familiar to Grefe, because Grefe made a movie called Stanley 1 year after Willard, which is basically Willard, where Stanley, the title character, doesn't have rats, he has snakes, which brings me to kind of my biggest complaint about this set. This is a very, very great view into Grefe's filmography, but as you look at the special features, as you listen to Grefe speak, he keeps bringing up several movies that are not in the set, that are very notable exceptions to the set, because Grefe's biggest hit, Grefe's kind of banner movie that people associate with him, is Stanley, and Stanley's not included in the set. There was a DVD of Stanley 9 or 10 years ago now by Code Red. They put it out. It's currently out of print. I don't think there's been a Blu-ray version of it. I'm not sure who owns the rights that Arrow couldn't get the rights to Stanley to present in the set, but it really is a notable exception. The other film that's a notable exception is Impulse, which stars William Shatner, which they do bring up a lot in the documentary that we're going to talk about later. That's my really nitpicky complaint about this set, is that I really wish it had Stanley. I really wish it had Impulse in it, especially because so many of the special features, Grefe brings it up all the time. He's clearly very proud of Stanley. It was clearly kind of a banner film for him, and it's just so. You hear so much about Stanley. If you're watching the special features, you're like, God damn, why can't I just open up the Stanley disc and put that in? The last film we're going to talk about before we talk about the documentary, we're going to talk about Whiskey Mountain. This is a how to describe this? It's kind of deliverance-y, kind of rituals-y. It's like a group of people versus hillbillies in the mountains. This is not a Florida movie. This is not a movie shot in Florida. This is, again, taking kind of Greffe's passions and hobbies and building a movie around them, because he was very interested in dirt bikes and he liked to vacation in North Carolina. He liked the mountains of North Carolina. He kind of likes the South, and that's what Whiskey Mountain is built around. He took half of his normal Florida crew and found half another crew in North Carolina, and they shot up in the mountains in North Carolina. And it is the only movie here that's kind of in super wide. It's in like 2:3:5:1 aspect ratio. It has Christopher George, who's a bigger star. You'll recognize him if you like westerns. It has a theme song and a score, other additional music by Charlie Daniels. He talks a little bit about in the introduction how he got that to happen. But it is a movie where I really wasn't vibing with it for like the beginning and middle portions. It really feels like a lighter kind of adventure comedy movie, which, like, Greffe's films are never that heavy, and they always have a little lace of black comedy throughout them. Like, even though these are very different movies we've talked about, they really do have this kind of certain innocence to them. They're not overly violent. They're not gory. They're not like Herschel Gordon Lewis movies. Herschel Gordon Lewis was making, movies in Florida around the same time. They are not overly sexual or overly kind of nudity filled. It doesn't seem like a concern. They're not like Florida's other low budget auteur, Doris Wishman. They're not like her movies in that way. They're his own thing. So the first 3/4 of this movie feels very light. It feels very like, okay, that doesn't seem like these characters are in all that much real danger. And then you hit a moment that is so dark and so depraved, and the movie keeps going after that. The movie just goes berserk at the end and becomes so mean and nihilistic with these characters that have been really kind of jokey the whole time. Even like the bad guys don't seem that bad, but it goes so for broke towards the end that you just gotta respect it in a certain way. It has such a mean-spirited kind of final 20 minutes that it won me over, because it's what a weird mix to have this completely goofy a group of four, 2 guys and 2 girls are going to find Confederate muskets that had been hidden. The main guy's wife has a treasure map that came from her great grandpappy, who had hidden these muskets. So they're going to find the titular Whiskey Mountain, and they're going to find these muskets. And they get all kinds of resistance along the way. Even though the movie looks kind of bad, like the transfer is from really beat up elements, really not looking their best. I wonder what this looked like and what it was like to try to restore this movie. You can still tell that the landscapes and the photography and the location shooting in this movie are really, really impressive. But the movie itself still is kind of tarnished by that really iffy elements that they must have used to make it. But it's very, very interesting. Along with the Psychedelic Priest, which is LA, another outlier where you see a very Florida guy out of the Florida element a little bit. But really, really fun, really weird, and then really dark for the unrelenting last 20 minutes or so. The next movie in the set I'd seen before getting the set, because I'd ordered it directly from Ballyhoo Motion Pictures. That is the director, Daniel Griffith, who's done a lot of special features on a lot of the discs we've talked about, actually. He made a feature documentary about Grefe called They Came from the Swamp, and that's reproduced here, the Blu-ray version of it. That's the extended version that came with this set too. It's really, really great. It's really, really exhaustive. I wonder, I didn't do this because I'd seen it before getting this set, but I wonder if it would work best, if the set would work best if you kind of watch this first. You kind of probably get some spoilers and stuff like that and some cool images spoiled for you. But it's such a nice overview of this man's career and what he's done. And so clearly, like, lovingly assembled. You get the sense that Griffith really likes Grefe and is really enamored with his filmography. So it's just a nice thing to have included in the set and kind of to build the set around, because it really isn't a special feature. It really is a whole other movie. And they talk to a lot of different people in here. They talked to William Shatner, they talked to David F. Friedman, they talked to Herschel Gordon Lewis, they talked to Frank Henenlotter, the director of Basket Case. And what's interesting about these movies is that most of them, not all of them, but most of them do include commentaries with both Grefe and Frank Henenlotter is moderating them. And I believe that stems from the kind of Something Weird video origins of a lot of these movies, in that Frank Henenlotter, along with Lisa Petrucci and the late Mike Veraney, was kind of that part of that triumvirate who put these movies out and who saved these movies originally. They're really nice, really affable commentaries to listen to. Just two kind of film buffs talking about the movies they're watching very casually and how they were made. So there you have it. I don't know how long this video is going to edit down to, but this is, I wanted to give this set its due. I wanted to give this set its time. I wanted to talk about each film individually, because I really just believe this is an amazing thing that Arrow's done here. You know, small complaints aside, and the only complaint is that I wanted more of it. But this is awesome. If you like regional filmmaking, if you like low budget film, if you like movies like this, if you like the kind of 60s and 70s kitsch and style, and you want to see a portal kind of into that world that's not there anymore, there's one really great special feature on here where they do locations then and now, and it's just Grefe walking around Miami and being like, wow, this is really built up compared to when I was here. This used to just be swamp, or this used to just be a park, or this used to just be, you know, the places they shot all these films. It's really, really interesting. It's kind of a world that doesn't exist anymore, and a type of filmmaking that doesn't exist anymore. And I think this is a really, really beautiful love letter to that. I don't know what the deal is with this. It was like $50 on Amazon at one point. I don't know if it's a limited edition. I know a lot of their sets are limited editions. I'll put the links down in the description for you to check it out. Well worth every penny. As I said, very long video, longer video than I usually make, so we're not going to have a book recommendation today. I don't want to give short shrift to any book that would just get caught at the end of this and no one would watch to the end of this. But what I will say, if you want book recommendations, my last video before this had 5 or 6 book recommendations. It was getting started with messed up horror fiction. I will put the link down below. I will put the card up there. And you can go click on that and go, there you go, knock yourself out with book recommendations. I'm Adam Caesar. Like, subscribe, go watch my other videos. They're not all as Florida heavy as this one, but I hope you enjoyed, and have a great one.